Hi guys, welcome back to Missy's Imaginings. Someone asked me if I was going to continue the theme park bounding series enough to put together some of the head accessories that are part of the pattern pack. And I had been so excited about getting all of the clothing items done, I completely spaced doing some of the little head pieces. So that's what we're going to do today. And I was going to mix it with another video, but then I thought, well, it would be too complicated to try to mesh the two videos together. So I'm not sure how long this will be, but we'll go ahead and get started. The first item that I'm going to be putting together is the little mouse ears. And to do that, I have cut the headband shape out of red felt, and I cut two pieces. So put my finger here, and I have sewn around the outside of the edge, leaving about an inch free. So there's about an inch opening. Then I cut some wire into the shape of the inside of the sewing there. Then to close my wire, what I prefer is I like to use medical tape, just because it has more of a cloth type, and I always fold it over so I can find the edge. It has more of a cloth finish, and so if I'm putting it on the ends of wires for wiring BJDs or in some of my craft things, if I want a softer finish on my tape, I like to use medical tape. And I'm just going to simply find where those two overlap slightly, and I'm going to wrap that in medical tape. And like I say, it's just kind of what I prefer. You could probably use masking tape or electrical tape or any kind, but I like that now it's kind of a softer finish, and that holds those two together. Then I have cut a rectangle and simply sewn, well, I cut a square and then I fold it in half with the right sides together and sewed one side, then here, left an opening here, so I could turn it right side out. This is going to be a fabric bow. So now that I have it turned, you can simply come into the fabric opening, and I like to put my knot under what would be the seam allowance so that it won't pop back out the opening. And then I'm going to be on one side, then I'll go ahead and slip stitch just a little stitch on the other piece of fabric. And now I'll come back to the first side, and hopefully that will show up okay in the camera. There we go. Then I'll come back to this side. And so what this is going to produce is, let's see if I can get on the other side of that little dot. Then I'll do this side. If I can keep my long thread from getting a knot there. And then I go back to the first side of the fabric. Then I come to the second side of the fabric. And again, my thread knots, which is always such a joy when hand sewing. All right, let's see if we can separate that. Okay, there we go. And then I'll go ahead and go back to the first side. And before I pull the thread all the way through, I'm going to have it on my finger. I'm going to give a couple twists. Then I'll take my needle through the loop. Pull that down snug. Now I'm going to take my needle back inside the bow. And I'm not going to come out the other side of the fabric. There we go, just kind of keeping it inside. Then I'll go ahead and puncture, pull it out, pull it kind of snug, and then flatten it out, and then everything is hidden, and then that seam is done. Then I'm going to knot my thread again. Okay. And starting at the bottom in the center, and I'll go ahead and fold it just to make sure I do get it centered. There we go. And I'm going to, and you don't have to do this, it's one of my little habits, is my thread is doubled and knotted at the end. And so a lot of times what I like to do, just to anchor my thread, is I'll go between those threads and then anchor like this. Now I'm just going to go with a quick slip stitch just in and out from one side of the rectangle to the other, and it's nice that the little dots kind of make sure that I'm in a straight line. And then I can tighten that up. You can tell where we're going with this, right? And then I'll come back down through those little accordion folds, pull it back, and pull it snug. And I'm going to go ahead and tie, well, not tie, but I'm going to knot that again. And go ahead and go in there twice. There we go. Now, to finish off this little bow, I took a strip and just folded the edges in and sewed it down. And it was just a little strip, so now I'm going to measure and see how much I actually want. And some of it will be folded over, so I'm just going to cut that. Okay, now here's my little bow. All right. Now I want to come out probably kind of in the center here. Okay, and this will come around like this. And then I'm going to fold that edge and come back down, and then take my thread from behind that little tie section, then back in the little tie section, and hopefully this real time won't be too boring for you. Alright, then I'm going to go back in, and I'm just basically what I'm doing is looping it around the edges so that my edges will be anchored together. There we go. Then once again I have my little loop of thread, twist my finger a couple times, going to anchor that in, pull it snug, and now come my thread. I have a cute little bow that can accentuate our little headband. So the bow's done. Then for the ears, what I'm going to use is a product called Heat and Bond, and basically it's just an iron-on adhesive. And so I've cut a piece of it. It comes with an adhesive glue layer. Hopefully you can see the sheen on there. And then the other side is paper. I'm going to use this piece with a piece of just paper, and because this adhesive, of course, it's activated by heat because it's iron on, but I don't want to just put this on and iron, because then this adhesive, if I do it this way, will stick to my iron, and if I do it this way, it'll stick to the surface of whatever I'm ironing. So I'm going to lay the first two little ears on the adhesive side, and then I'm going to put them down on the paper. I'll probably go ahead and just do it over to the side, and then we'll come back and look at it. Now we've used the iron, so we're going to go ahead and peel back the backing, and then we're going to let it cool for a minute. Let's see, we can, there we go, we'll cut, or not the, so then the next step will be to trim away the excess that we don't need here. So we're trimming away the, there we go, and then this side still has the plastic on there. Then we'll trim away this one. Okay, and okay, so now the next step is going to be a little bit tricky. Oh, and I need that backing paper again. So with the slick side of the backing paper, we're going to access that again, because what we're going to do is we're going to put the slick side over the little part that's the little ending or tab on the ear. There we go. Now that'll show up better right here, because when I iron this onto this side, I don't want these little tabs to stick together, because when I put it into the headband, I want these to be able to separate. So I'm not going to iron that part together. And I'm just using 2 layers of felt with the adhesive between it, because it will make them a little more stiff and more apt to stand up without flopping. So that's why I'm doing 2 pieces with the heat and bond in between them. So my next step of action here, we'll get the slick side of the fabric is going to be right here on the tab, just to cover that up, and then I'm going to iron this piece onto the adhesive of the other one, so it will be creating 2 layer ears. So I'll be doing that, and then I'll come right back to the camera and we'll look at our next step. And here are our little ears that are still separate at the tab, but this part has been glued together, so I'm going to let those cool, and now they're stiff, well, more so. And I like using the heat and bond because it's not as thick and lumpy as like hot glue. So now what I want to do is, because I cut these all separate, I'm going to trim away everything that doesn't match, because they're not a perfect match. So we're going to kind of trim that away, make sure they match. And this, that looks a little bit better than that one. Okay, so my next step is, I know I want these to be on the headband so that once it curves, we'll have little ears. So I want them to be pretty close together, but not actually like touching. And all I'm going to do is find the center and then come down just a little bit from the center and make just a little slit on each side. I'm going to start with a little tiny slit here. And let's see if we can that's just kind of where I'm going to start, and then I can trim as I need to. So I'm kind of pulling it away, and I'll make a slit on this one. So I'm not puncturing the back layer, only the front layer. If I can get it to separate. Okay. There we go. Okay. And it's just making knot. I am cutting away a little bit because it's going to be pretty thick that has to fit in there. So now I can cut it to fit my ears. And this one, that one's pretty close to the center. Let's see. I'll make this one a little bit longer. Then each time as I go, I'm adjusting both the ears, and I'm going to grab different scissors so they're a little bit sharper. We'll adjust this. So we have the little slits cut, and next we're going to put the wire in. So I'm going to slide my wire inside, and I have it bent so I can kind of get it inside. There we go. Now we'll unfold the wire. And flatten it out inside. And just kind of form it to the shape of our little headband. And then once it's inside, I'm going to sew the remaining opening. Guess it would help if I tie a knot my thread. There we go. So now we'll finish sewing this shut. And you could do this on a sewing machine, but I don't really want to risk breaking a needle by hitting the wire. So then I'm just going to go back the other way so that I don't have like every other stitch, but then I'm actually filling in the stitches on both sides. So there's our wire that's been placed into our headband. We'll go inside. So now we're ready to put the ears inside the slots. And then I will also press down the side that still had a little bit of adhesive, and I will also sew that with needle and thread into place, and then we'll come back to the camera. When I'm sewing this, I am coming from one side, and here I'm coming up from this side, and I need to grab some of that red felt here. I'm coming up from underneath. There we go. but I am also going through the ear because I want to anchor that down really well. So I'm going from one side to the other and then going down through the tabs just to kind of help anchor those little ears into place. Now I'll come up from the other side again, and here again I want to pull my, there we go, pull my felt, the red snug up against the ear. So come up on this side, and I'm going to go through the ear to the other side, and then down through the tab on the ear. Then I'll come back up the other side, and through the ear, and then down through the tab of the ear. And that way I'm anchoring it not just on each side, but actually through the center. Just kind of helps keep it where I want it a little bit better. And then that heat and bond also helps to keep the felt intact because felt can kind of pull apart easily. So now that I have that little ear on, I'm going to kind of pull my thread snug, and then I will come across that little space between the ears. Now I'll put the other ear in and do the same thing. Now that both ears are anchored onto the headband, I have my thread anchored again, and now I'm going to go ahead and sew on the little bow. So we're just going to sew it to the little tie at the bottom, and I'll probably anchor into the bow as well, and then that little tie, and then the little bow section, just so I have a good anchor there. And then go back down through the headband here to kind of anchor it that way. Then I'll come back and go back up, and now I'll kind of go up a little bit taller into that little ribbon tie, and then back down through the middle, just kind of keep everything anchored well. Then back down to the bottom, and there we go, we have our bow on. And I'll tie this off again, and I'm kind of anchoring it to the other threads that I already have in place, just because I know the felt can kind of rip because felt isn't a super strong fabric and can tear. So there we go. And we'll hide our thread and trim that. And now the headband can be bent because of the wire to the shape of your doll. So you can bend it to fit. And here is our first little ears. And if you want that to be scrunched down, you could even bring your thread back in and anchor that down even more if you wanted to, and scrunch it just to your own preference level. But then the wire is inside, and there's our little headband. The next project for a headband is going to be a totally different take on materials that you can use. So this was felt and some wire and fabric. The next one is going to be using some shrink art and and some resin to put this one together. So I'll kind of clean up my sewing materials, put the machine down, and we'll come back and put this one together. First, we'll take a look at materials. The first being sheets of shrink art plastic or shrinky dink plastic. I got these on Amazon, and it just comes in, I believe it's like an A4 sheet, because it's a little bit longer than US letter and a little bit more narrow than US letter. US letter size is 8.5 by 11, so these sheets are a little bit longer, so they're more like 11.5 inches long but only 8 inches wide. And so I cut these two pieces out of shrink art. Now these pieces are approximately 3 times larger than the actual pieces in the pattern. So let me grab those. Here are the actual pattern pieces. So you can see this is roughly, well, maybe 1 time bigger, and this one's about 3 times bigger. So this is going to shrink down. Now this you could shrink down in your oven according to the instructions. I'm going to go ahead and try to use my heat gun here, just because I'm all ready to film right here rather than going downstairs with the oven. So I think it'll be okay. I think we can do it. And then we're going to form these and mold these, shrink it down, and it will turn into a hard plastic that will be a lot smaller. And then to accentuate or decorate this, I have some pearl strands. I'll see how they look. I have some little white metal snowflake pieces that go with brads. These come from hot off the press. So there's some little metal snowflakes. Then I have a variety of little beads in different blues and clear. Then to put this actually into the piece once it's curved, I do think I'm going to go ahead and curve this a little bit more beforehand, just because once it's shrunk it gets thicker. So there we go. We're going to cut that more of an angle there. And so once that's shrunk down, these are going to go inside, and then I'm going to adhere that with some UV resin. So I bought this UV resin, and it came in a little kit on Amazon. And this is Yeho UV resin, clear, hard type, fast curing. It came in a kit with 3 bottles of the resin. It also came with a little UV light for curing. So it opens like a little stand, and it has little UV lights here. And then it's powered by a little connection. It looks kind of like what would be on my Samsung phone or an iPhone, I guess, and then a USB on the other end. So I have a USB port over to the side. So this I will connect into, let's see if we get it in the right spot. Maybe it's upside down. There we go. And then when you put it into the UV, there we go. Now we have UV light showing there. Does that look purple? Can you see there? So we have a UV light available to cure the resin. So that's what I'll be using for my resin. Now I'll plug that because it'll be a minute before I need that. Then I have a little cup that also came with the kit. And then I have some wooden toothpicks and little wooden spatulas that I also got off Amazon. You get, I think, 500 of these for a few bucks. And then I also have Sculpey Gloss Glaze, because this piece here, I have done the coloring with colored pencils on the rough side because it's already frosted and ready to use your different mediums. And so I used colored pencil to color the blues that I wanted on both pieces. So the one side is glossy, but then the other side is not. So I do have the gloss glaze to put on the side that's not glossy, so it will be glossy on both sides. Then I will affix all my little embellishments with the clear resin and then cure it. I also have an LE UV, or not UV, yeah, UV flashlight that has UV light that I also use for curing for things that don't easily fit underneath the little lamp that I have. So I also have just a little UV flashlight that's kind of more direct. And this takes, I believe it's AAA batteries. Let's see if I can unscrew the top, maybe. There we go. Like I say, I've got a bad thumb. It's not wanting to grip stuff. So we'll unscrew this, and then this comes out, and then we have 3 AAA batteries that power the lamp, or the little flashlight rather. So, and I think this was maybe $7 or $8 on Amazon. So that's where all my supplies come from. So there we go. There's a little UV light for additional curing. Then for working with heat, I have a heat gun. So we'll grab the heat gun out of its box here. And it looks like this. And it has a little, I think this is supposed to be a, here we go. They can go on here to diffuse the heat, but I don't really use that. And then it has a little stand, and then it plugs in just to a regular outlet. So we'll plug that in to the side here, and then it has a on and off switch. 2 speeds of air, and then it's just a heat gun. So that's what I'll be using to shrink this. Then I actually, and I try to keep my resin away from the heat gun until I'm ready to use the resin, because I don't want to start a fire. Then I do have this, I had some foam and I put it on like a cardboard backing and just sewed some fabric over it. So I have this as a heat pad that I can place these on so that they don't ruin my mat. So it's just some foam and then like cotton over the top of it. So what we'll go ahead and do is get started on shrinking these down. And I have some tweezers here, so we'll go ahead and start shrinking. And it will make a lot of weirdo shapes at first as it's shrinking. See how it kind of wiggles up there? And then it'll kind of shrink in on itself. Until it's kind of done. There we go. See, and then it kind of flattens back out. There we go. Flatten that back out. Shrink it down. Oh, I got a tip there. And then I can kind of press it into place. And it is very hot, so you just want to be careful. Okay, and we're gonna go ahead and put that over a little bit more. Okay, turn it off and put our stand. So here we have the first part, our little crown. There we go, and it's shrunk down to, let's grab my arm, sorry there, a little bit smaller. I guess it wasn't quite as big as this. So there's our little, so it is smaller. I could have made it a little bit bigger, but I didn't want to use another piece of my plastic sheeting. So one side's very shiny, and then the other side is not. So this side is where we'll affix all of our pretty little embellishments. So now we have that one done. We'll go ahead and start in on the big one. This one's going to be very curly. It's going to take a minute or two. So here we go. So this ended up a little bit rumply, but we're still going to go ahead and use it. And it did start to crack here, but I'm going to fill that in with resin, and we're going to add some embellishments. I did the rough side on the inside so that the shiny side is on the top. And then we're just going to add some embellishments to kind of make it look like snow and ice. And so hopefully it will kind of look the part. So there we go. I'm going to see which side will fit in the best. because, oh, I think either way that's going to work. This side, it looked like ended up being a little bit smaller than the other. So let's see. Oh, there we go. I think that'll work. So we'll go ahead and we're going to put some resin on there and start curing that, and then add our embellishments. So we'll kind of speed up through that process as well, just because it is very time consuming. So to clean out my little bucket, I got rid of everything that was still very liquidy, and the stuff that was a little more solid, it kind of had started to come up. I think because I had my light on it a little bit too much. I'm just putting it under the lamp to let it finish curing, and then it'll pop right out of that little container. But here is our little frozen crown. So it looks kind of like icy, and then I did have some kind of leak, but I can add a little bit more resin, and because I wanted it to look a little bit like snow and ice, so that's the little resin shrinky dink headband to make for a crown. And I think if you want this to be less rumply, it would have been more flat if I had put it in the oven, but because I didn't want to go down there, then it's just kind of rumply from doing it with a heat gun. The heat gun works really well on the smaller pieces, but on large pieces they seem to do better in the oven. And then we have our little Minnie Mouse ears for the other one. So that is the two headbands we'll go ahead and put together, just for a couple different options and different ways that you might want to attempt some of these. You can also use just pipe cleaner wire if you want to make the headband, and then attach little ears and stuff to it. So there's lots of different ways that these can be put together. It's really up to whatever medium you're comfortable using, but this way you can kind of see a couple different methods if you want to go with the shrinky-dink plastic and make it so it's shiny and sparkly, or if you like the cloth option. It just gives you some choices, and creativity is limitless, kind of whatever you want to do. I did have the little pearl strands, but they're kind of an off-white color and they don't really match the snowflakes, so that's why I didn't put the pearls on. But anyway, there we go. I hope that's helpful and inspires you to try some creative ideas on your own. And like I say, there's the other little piece that was a star. You can really adorn a little headband with anything. You can buy little barrettes for the tops. If you want things that are pre-made, you can always kind of go that route. But yeah, so there's the two little headbands we'll put together, and that will officially finish up the theme park bounding series. The wings I would just trace onto some clear acetate and cut them out, so they're kind of self-explanatory, I guess. But here's how I would put these together. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope it's helpful, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!